The princess wakened with a begin, her heart pounding. She sat up, taking in her surroundings. A cold, damp stone cell, a tiny barred window excessive above, casting vulnerable, eerie light at the ground. She became wearing a tattered robe, her lengthy, stylish hair tangled and ravelled. The final issue she remembered changed into being on the palace, making ready for her coronation ceremony. Then, a blinding light, a sharp pain in her head, and darkness. She need to had been drugged. She tried to face, but her legs have been weak and wobbly. As she stumbled to her FT, she felt something tough and cold press against her lower back. Don't move, Your Highness, a harsh voice hissed. Or I'll blow your quite little brains out. The princess iced over, her heart racing. It became the ruthless interstellar crime syndicate, she realized. They need to have abducted her to extract a few type of ransom from her rich and effective planet. She swallowed hard, seeking to compose herself. Who are you? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. And what do you need from me? The Protect chuckled darkly. I'm just one of the many unswerving servants of our organization, Your Highness. And what our agency wants is straightforward, your head on a platter. But before that occurs, we thought it would be great to have a touch fun with you first. He stepped apart, revealing a discern standing just outside the mobile. Say hiya to your new cellmate. The princess blinked in marvel as a human parent stepped into view. Tall and wide-shouldered, he wore worn leather armor stained with dust and blood, and bore an extended, risky-searching sword at his aspect. His face changed into hidden behind a helmet that obscured all but his sharp, hawk-like nose. My call is Nathaniel, he stated, his voice deep and gruff. I've been hired to get you out of right here. The princess stared at him in disbelief. You're a mercenary? She asked, suffering to keep the worry from her voice. That's proper, he spoke back, a sly grin curling the corners of his mouth. And I'm right here to get you domestic. The princess taken into consideration this for a second. Her human beings and Nathaniel's humans were enemies for generations, ever because their homeworlds had first come into contact. But in this second, she realized that possibly there was more to each of them than the stories they had been advised. She took a deep breath and nodded. Very well, she stated, steeling herself. Let's get started, then. Nathaniel nodded returned, his expression grim. First factors first, he said. We want to discover a way out of this vicinity. He gestured on the Protect, who changed into nevertheless status nearby, watching them with narrowed eyes. I'm going to create a distraction. When I do, you run for it. Without expecting a response, Nathaniel charged ahead, his sword drawn. The shield raised his weapon in alarm, however it became too late. There was a clash of metallic, and the Protect fell to the ground, clutching at his chest. The princess watched in horror as Nathaniel stood over the fallen guy, his sword nevertheless raised. I'm sorry, he muttered, wiping the blood from his blade on the Protect's uniform. But it needed to be done. He turned lower back to the princess, who became nevertheless frozen in surprise. Come on, he advised, providing her his hand. We don't have a good deal time. She took a shaky step forward, and he pulled her right into a run. They raced down the dank corridors, the sound of pursuing footsteps developing nearer in the back of them. Where are we? The princess gasped as they rounded a corner. And how do we find our way out of right here? Nathaniel glanced over his shoulder, his expression grim. We're inside the heart in their operations, he said. And the handiest manner out is through. With renewed determination, he led them deeper into the labyrinthine tunnels, his sword on the geared up. Trust me, he said. I recognize a way out. As they persisted to run, the princess found herself wondering if she could genuinely agree with this man. After all, he became a mercenary, and mercenaries had been now not recognized for his or her loyalty. But as they navigated the treacherous underworld together, she started to see a distinct side of him. A facet that turned into courageous, honorable, and selfless. Perhaps, she idea, there has been extra to Nathaniel than met the eye. And perhaps, simply perhaps, there has been wish for a brighter destiny for each of their peoples. Finally, they reached what regarded to be a useless give up. But Nathaniel failed to hesitate. He took out a small, intricately carved wood flute and started to play a haunting melody. Soon, the stone partitions began to shift and grind, revealing a hidden passageway at the back of a secret door. They moved quickly through the narrow tunnel, rising into the intense, fresh air of a hidden courtyard. Above them, the celebrities twinkled in the night sky. This is it, Nathaniel stated, breathing a sigh of relief. This is the manner out. He provided the princess his hand, supporting her over the low wall that surrounded the courtyard. Are you ready to go home? The princess checked out Nathaniel, her eyes shining with gratitude and hope. Yes, she replied. Yes, I am. Together, they walked toward the remote metropolis, their footsteps echoing across the empty area. As they left the darkness behind them, the princess couldn't help, however, surprise what the future held for them each. But for now, she was content to take this primary step, hand in hand, into the light. So, she stated, breaking the silence. What now? Nathaniel glanced over at her, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. Now, he said, we discover a way to put an end to this warfare. The princess seemed puzzled. But how? They have spies and agents anywhere. They'll in no way stop searching out us. Nathaniel's expression grew solemn. We'll have to find a way to turn the tables on them. We'll need to accumulate evidence, disclose their plots, and monitor the fact to the people of each our kingdoms. He paused, his gaze fixed on the horizon. It may not be easy, and it might not be quick. But collectively, I trust we can convey peace. The princess nodded, her coronary heart swelling with a newfound dedication. Together, she repeated, taking his hand, we will make a difference. They persevered to walk, lost in concept, because the stars above them twinkled like remote candles, their mild guiding them toward a future wherein peace and prosperity may in the end reign. As they drew towards the city, they may see the lighting fixtures flickering against the night sky, the sounds of laughter and music drifting via the air. It changed into a reminder that regardless of the dark forces that sought to rip them aside, there has been nevertheless splendor and joy to be determined in the global. Nathaniel squeezed the princess's hand reassuringly. Don't lose desire, he said. No count number what lies beforehand. We will face it together. She regarded up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and belief. I might not, she said softly. I promise. They reached the outskirts of the city, the acquainted points of interest and sounds of domestic surrounding them another time. As they made their manner via the bustling streets, they commenced to formulate a plan, devising techniques and recruiting allies to assist them of their quest for peace. The adventure might not be easy, and there could be many barriers to overcome. But as long as they'd each other, So long as they held Speedy to their shared vision of a higher destiny, they knew that they couldn't fail. Together, they would carry light to the darkness, and peace to the warfare-torn lands that had lengthy been their domestic. As they walked aspect by means of side, their steps in ideal rhythm, the princess ought to experience a new-found sense of purpose coursing through her veins. She became now not only a prize to be gained or a pawn to be used, she became a warrior for peace, a champion for justice. And status beside Nathaniel, she felt invincible. The destiny stretched out earlier than them, full of opportunity and promise. They could shape it any manner they selected, and that they knew that the world became looking forward to them, to guide it right into a brighter the following day. So they persisted on, their hearts packed with braveness and determination, their minds full of desires of a global at peace. And as they walked into the uncertain destiny, hand in hand, they knew that together, they may make a difference. They could trade the arena. Their first order of enterprise changed into to confront the undercover agent, to find his identity and study the quantity of his betrayal. They would need to collect data, accumulate allies, and gather proof of his treachery. But first, they wished a place to assume, a place to strategize, an area in which they might plan their subsequent pass. They ducked into a quiet tavern, locating a secluded sales space inside the nook. As the warmth of the hearth soothed their chilled skin and the rich heady scent of ale filled their nostrils, they took stock in their surroundings, sizing up the buyers for any signs and symptoms of suspicion. We should start via questioning anyone we depended on, Nathaniel said, his voice low and urgent. We need to realize who else is probably working against us. The princess nodded in settlement, her coronary heart racing as she thought about the possibility of betrayal lurking around each nook. And we want to be careful, she added. The undercover agent should have all of us fooled. They spent the rest of the afternoon interrogating their closest allies, every question sending a shiver of distrust through them. But because the day became to night time, they discovered no concrete evidence against any of their friends. It turned into clear that the spy was a master of deception, and they should maintain their seek. As they left the tavern, the princess glanced over her shoulder, her eyes darting throughout the shadows, searching for any signal of the spy. We should bear in mind going into hiding for a while, she suggested. Until we are able to discern out a way to stop him. Nathaniel nodded in settlement. He agreed. We'll need to locate an area where he won't assume us to move. Together, they wove their way through the bustling streets, their steps silent and cautious, their senses on high alert. They ducked into a deserted warehouse, its dusty floors and cobweb-covered partitions the best location to lose themselves for a while. They installed a makeshift camp, sharing a meager meal and discussing their subsequent pass. We may want to try and trap the undercover agent out into the open, Nathaniel proposed. Set a lure of kinds. The princess considered this for a second. It's volatile, however it is probably our most effective hazard. We should go away a path of false information, something that might lead him to agree with we are making plans something precise. Nathaniel nodded, his eyes glowing with determination. It's worth an attempt. Let's get started out. They spent the next few days planning their entice, carefully crafting each detail. They planted false clues and misleading statistics, hoping that the undercover agent might take the bait. As they waited, their nerves on edge, they knew that one wrong flow may want to suggest the cease of everything they had labored for. Finally, at the fourth day, they obtained word that their lure had been sprung. The spy had taken the bait and was on his manner to satisfy them. Their hearts racing, they prepared for the war of words that lay beforehand. They met the secret agent at an abandoned pier, the lapping waves and creaking forums the best sounds that crammed the air. He stepped out of the shadows, his face obscured by using a hooded cloak. "I've been watching for you," Nathaniel stated, his voice constant no matter the pounding of his heart. "You've made a grave mistake, and now you may pay the rate." The secret agent hesitated, his shoulders tensing underneath the cloak. "I'm no longer the one you have to be after," he said, his voice low and conspiratorial. "There's a person else for your midst." Nathaniel and the princess exchanged a knowing look, their suspicions confirmed. They had been right to doubt everyone. The secret agent had led them on a wild goose chase, however now they had him in which they wanted him. "Tell us who it is," the princess demanded, her hand gripping the hilt of her sword. "You're now not leaving here without giving us answers." The spy hesitated once more, his shoulders tensing beneath his cloak. "It's a person close to you, a person you believe. Someone who has been operating with me all alongside." Nathaniel and the princess exchanged another look, their expressions growing extra grim by using the second. They knew that the secret agent changed into telling the reality, however they also knew that they could not have enough money to show any symptoms of weak point. "Prove it," the princess demanded, her voice constant in spite of the turmoil inside her. "Tell us the call, and we'll provide you with a risk to walk far away from this." The secret agent chuckled darkly, the sound echoing through the pier. "I don't suppose so, Your Highness. You see, my agency doesn't care about names. All they need is for the throne to be vacant." Nathaniel's grip tightened on his sword, his knuckles turning white. "And what makes you think you may succeed in which so many others have failed?" he growled. The undercover agent shrugged, his actions graceful no matter the cloak. "Because I have something that they do not. Something so one can make all of the difference." He paused, his voice losing to a menacing whisper. "And now, I assume it is time for you both to find out just how effective that something is." As if in solution, rumbling filled the air, developing louder with every passing second. The princess and Nathaniel exchanged involved glances, realizing that their time become going for walks out. The undercover agent turned into approximately to make his move, and they had to be prepared. "What is it?" Nathaniel whispered, his eyes darting across the pier, attempting to find any signal of the imminent risk. The secret agent smiled, revealing a depraved set of teeth beneath his hood. "You'll discover soon enough."